Good morning, everyone. Good morning, commissioners. I have that it's 9 o'clock, so we will go ahead and get started. This is our debrief session that we promised y'all from your work group session that occurred on Tuesday. So our call is going to be from 9 to 9:30, and what we're going to do is run through everything that happened on Tuesday with the recommendations. You all should have received that via email from me on Tuesday that have photographs of the work that the work group did, also the sign-in sheet so you can see who all attended, and then also their recommendations. So just to set the stage a little bit for today, what we did was our team here worked with the finance team to run the costs of those recommendations to get to you all a projection of what we think that it might cost and what it might look like in terms of time. So in just a moment, Chris is going to be sharing that with you. Our goal today is to get your feedback on that and also any recommendations that you all might have, either based on your own thinking since we last met or recommendations based on what you see today. So we will do that now. And then if you have questions, we'll be glad to answer those. So Chris, I'll pass it to you.
Thank you, Ashley. I appreciate you introducing this, and I appreciate the commission for being here today. You all did receive recommendations from the commission's working group, and Ashley presented that information to you, but I did want to spend some time reflecting with you all the information we took back, the proposed rates that were submitted by the working group, to see the comparison from that between what was currently being implemented and what is going to be implemented potentially in the future with the proposed rates. So let me give you some information on that. I'm going to share my screen. Let's see. It's going to be that one. All right. And I want to do this from the beginning. Make sure. Can you all see the screen?
Yeah.
All right, so let's look at the rate comparisons. As you can see right here in this slide, these are the rate comparisons for Benton, Washington on the left-hand side, and the rural urban infant and toddler on the right-hand side. You can see in the first part of those sheets is the current rates for full-time, part-time, and night and weekend, as well as the proposed full-time, part-time, and night and weekends. Those are in the kind of orange highlighted colors. Those are the infant toddler for both groups. And then the next slide gives the pre-K and school age for both groups. And so we put these rates together to be able to showcase what the changes were between the original rates that we have that are to go into effect, that were in effect October 1, that we are now using to do quality enhancement payments, but also are to be implemented without the quality enhancement payments November 1. So in those statewide rates, you can see the differences that are here. So this slide tells you how much of an addition to the state rates the different levels would obtain. So for instance, you can see right here in level 2 for part-time, full-time, and night and weekend that there's not a change in level 2 for statewide until you get to school age. And the proposed rates are going to be less than what the November 1 rates are for school age. And that's pretty much all the way across the board. There's going to be increases, though, at level 3 through level 6. And again, the proposed rates were for there to be a level 3 and 4 paid at the same rate, level 5 and 6 paid at the same rate. So you can see the differences that are there are provided.
Chris, I'm going to stop you just for a second.
Yes, ma'am.
Because if I got lost in that, I'm worried that others might have gotten lost in it.
Yes.
On that chart you just showed, I think it's up. So these are the recommended changes from the task force, right?
Yes. This
Okay,
is
so that
the
it would
difference
be
between them.
okay. So it would be for levels 3 and 4 an increase from what the state recommended, they've made the recommendation to increase it by $15
Yes,
per day.
per day.
Okay, and then
Due
20,
to
okay.
daily rate differences. So 15 for levels 3 and 4 for full-time infant care, 27 per day for levels 5 and 6 for full-time infant care, and it's so forth and so on. There will be a drop at the state school age rates for that. So basically, what they're trying to do is shift the cost from school age up to infant toddler care. And then what we see in Benton, Washington County, the same type of chart, but you can see right here, level 2, the rates that are being proposed for level 2 are less than what was the statewide rate that we had applied. So that difference is pretty sharp when you get to school age. It's $5 a day for full-time infant care on level 2, and even in some level 3 and level 4 in Benton and Washington counties. And then that money is going to be added to these levels here. So any questions from the commission so far on this information?
Hey, Chris, it's Debbie. I just have one.
Yes.
For the level 2, can you remind me prior to October 1 what their rate was? Because I feel like with the new rates that you guys put out, they actually had an increase. Is that correct?
The level 2 statewide rate that was applied as of October 1 was $43, I believe, for infant care from Benton and Washington County.
Right. So what was it prior to that, before? Because I felt like they got a raise October 1.
Brandy, can you look at that and see what that is? I don't have those charts in front of me.
Yes.
Thank you.
So while she's looking that up, I'm going to go ahead and continue, and then Brandy, you can chime in whenever you get that answer. All right, so what we did here was essentially we applied those rates to pending authorizations that were November 1 through September 30th. We said anyone that's in there that we know is going to be authorized for this many days, so we can get a pretty good accounting of who is going to be funded with these and what the impact will be fiscally. So these are projected costs utilizing that framework from November 2025 through September 2026. So this chart right here is giving the current implemented rates. So it would cost from that time, from November through the end of September 2026, $69.9 million is what the cost would be for that, which is about $6.3 million a month, which is about on track with what we said we needed to do for our budget. The proposed work group cost, with all of those different rates implemented for all the different parts, is $76.8 million, which is about an increase of $6.9 million. And you can see kind of a breakdown here of the infant, toddler, preschool, and school age cost that is associated with each of those, the state rate plan, the work group rate plan, and then the difference between the two. So right now, it looks like that the cost for infant care would increase under the proposed work group plan. So would toddler care, and so would preschool, but the school age would decline. But it would still be $6.9 million higher, which is about 10% more than what we had estimated based on the new implemented rates. Brandy, did you get that rate for Debbie?
Yes, sir. I've dropped it in the chat. The
Okay.
previous Ben Washington rate for level 2 infant toddler was $46. Statewide was $39.
Okay.
Thank you, Brandy.
So we're dropping from what was implemented at 46 to that new rate, which I think is 37, 38, might be 39. So, all right. Here are some additional expenses that I think the commission needs to be aware of that are regularly coming out of the CCDF fund. Federal pre-K seats, we have about 1,017 seats that we pay on an annual basis for that kind of care that comes directly out of CCDF. They're not in SRA, but they are funded through CCDF as part of the COPA. So we have about $1.3 million a month that comes out from those federal pre-K seats. We also have the ABC infant toddler subsidies. These are rates for infant and toddlers that are paid at the higher rate for ABC slots that were done many years ago. This is just a historical practice that has been done, and that's about $106,000 monthly. We also have 50 infant toddler seats that we are required to have in our state plan as part of our agreement with the federal ACF, and that costs about $67,000 monthly. So that cost is about $1.5 million per month that we have to expend out of available CCDF funding to pay providers for that care. Another thing that has to be considered are unbilled service days that we have obligated. So once we give an authorization, there are so many days that are billed for that, and then, or so many days that are available to bill for that. And then what happens is providers can bill against that authorization for up to the capacity of that authorization. The amount that we have right now outstanding prior to October 2025 is about $1 million. So we have about $1 million out there that is available that has not been deobligated yet that people can bill us for. Subsequently, we also have about $3.9 million in October that is still unbilled from our October period. So that adds a cost to us right now for about $5 million. That lowers our threshold. Remember, we talked about how much available funding is out there for us. That does lower our ability to pay that. I also want to talk to you all about, there was some discussion about this $4 million that was taken out of contracts. Those funds have already been spent. So that's why we have a difference in our available funding from what we reported to you all when we met as a commission. There was a commission meeting and we said there was about $16 million, and then we said there was $20 million. Well, the reason why we had those differences that were there was because we had moved expenses for direct services to things like PDG available funding that we had, and to the contract reductions. So those things were paid out, which is why we have this available funding now. But that does lower our threshold and our available funding to be able to use. So if we have right now $22 million, we're going to lower that by $5 million, and then also consider the federal pre-K, ABC infant toddler subsidies, and the infant toddler seat monies that we have to pay on a monthly basis. So I wanted you all to understand that, so you know going in that any sort of shift in our rates is going to have a potential negative impact on our ability to have sustainability through September 30th. Remember, the state system, the state rates, the things we have implemented, the rates, co-pays, everything is ensuring our stability for September 30th. Any change to that, any additional cost that we have, any reduction in co-payments is going to shorten our ability to meet that September 30th timeframe with funding. So I'm going to stop sharing at this point and open up to questions with the commission.
Hey, Chris, it's Debbie again.
Yes.
So I think one thing that I'm just really confused about, like when the work group met, why those numbers weren't given, because now that skews the whole solution. You know what I mean? That 5 million that you're talking about. So that skews the whole solution that everybody worked toward, because those numbers weren't part of the plan.
we had to go back in, Debbie, to look at what has not been paid in authorizations. That, that takes a bit of time to do, to say who has paid, who has not paid, and checking all that. So in looking at that, we wanted to make sure that we had all that, because again, we have to make sure that there's financial stability. At the end of the day, though, even though we're applying a data set, the data set can be the same for everyone, and we're applying that similarly. So as we're doing that, there's a 10% difference. So even if we were to say the money was the same, it wouldn't matter if the cost was here or not here. We still would have the same plan that's implemented. It's all about the cost amount that's different on the back end. So we have these authorizations that we have to pay for, but we also have an increase that's going to come from these proposed rates. I don't know if the difference would be there if they knew that there was $5 million less, because we're talking about rates that we're applying all the way through the system through September 30th. Does that
Right.
make sense?
It does a little bit. Like I purposely didn't put myself on that task group because numbers are not my thing. So I leave that up to people that are smarter than I am. But I never saw those numbers come into play. And that's part of how I'm funded. So I don't know why it didn't even occur to me that I didn't see those in that formula. So thank you for explaining.
Right, and we did share with members that were on the task force. We did say federal pre-K is not included in these numbers, but it is an expense. Now, we did not give the numbers of what the cost would be for that, but that is something we said was going to come out of that. Tyra, did you have a question?
So I'm wondering if you ran a projection, if we implement the new suggested rate structure, at what point do we exhaust current funds? Do you know a roundabout date?
I mean, I could get you some information on that. A lot of it is going to come down to, there's a lot of different recommendations out there, even with copay changes. And if we implement copay changes, that of course changes the amount of available funding to offset that, because all the copay changes are going to do is reduce the state obligation to pay for those days. So if we change anything, if we put a family cap in, if we decide that we're going to implement no copays at the 60th percent SMI, that will change the amount of available funding to see us through that September 30th. So in saying that, there's a lot to consider with that. What I can tell you is a 10% increase in funding is going to diminish our capacity to reach September 30th by 10%. So if we're expected to meet so many days out here to get to September 30th, it would decrease by 10%. So you may, I can.
Hey, Chris, I'm going to jump in just for a second.
Yes.
And so one thing I want to just kind of remind everyone is when we're running these projections, we're running these projections at what we are our max cost. So every authorization that we have approved, we're accounting it right now. Like it's a debit card that's been handed out there. It hasn't expired yet, right? So, we do anticipate that not all authorizations will be used, right? And so, but we're trying to give you, we're counting every maximum, like what could be out there. I actually think in conversations we've had after the task force group met and their recommendations on the rates and the projections, we feel overall, we feel like the recommendations on the rates is something that is still doable. Okay, I don't want you to hear Chris today and think that we're saying no. Okay, that's not the case. We actually feel like the rate pieces are doable. I think today, as this conversation continues on with the commission, I think where we could maybe have some caution in there is like maybe with the copay part, right? So what we just ran with the rates doesn't account for the copay lessening that maximum amount. Does that make sense, Debbie? You're the one I can see on the screen. so I'm getting a nod from you if that makes sense. So when we haven't run like what the copay part would take out of that and be able to save on some aspects. So I think for this commission to consider it might be the aspect of you guys might recommend move forward with the recommendations of the task force for the rates, but consider holding the co-pays at their current percentage based on the lowest rate, right? That was one of the recommendations, I think, from the task force was maintaining co-pays at the lowest rate for families 85% state median income. I think I probably, or the department would probably lean in and say, maintain co-pays for families for another month based on the lowest rate, so we can see how that has an impact. One thing we're seeing when we're running the data, and Chris said this, but I've had to hear it 2 or 3 times before it sunk in. A lot of the data that we're seeing right now that we're paying out is still paying out from September. Providers putting in September costs that are based on an old rate, right? And so we still know we have folks out there who haven't put in their October pieces yet, which is fine, but it never gives us an exact amount, you know, so we're giving you maximum amounts. I do think as you as commissioners look at the recommendations of the task force about the rates, that's still, I believe, very much on the table. I think it's just a matter of what all things we try to implement or do at the same time. So I'm going to pause there and see if that helped.
I think that does help to explain it. It's just so hard when we are hearing the voices of the providers. And just yesterday, so many people coming in talking about they're letting parents know what their new rates will be, and they're pulling left and right. And so while we try to sustain until the end of September, the centers are closing, and children are, you know, they're asking them. One thing that we're trying to do is collect data. Like, if you pull your children from me, where are they going? Many of them are going home. Parents are cutting their hours at work, or they're going to, you know, a less quality place down the road. So, and I know that doesn't really answer your question or solve the problem. It's so hard to try to balance what everybody needs, right? Like, it's just a hard situation for everyone.
I think too, on the rate recommendations of the task force, which I think were actually, I was actually, when I saw the projections, I actually felt better about it than I really anticipated I would, to be honest. But one of the things I thought in terms of like how we move forward possibly could be that everything again above the 2 is considered those quality payments, right? So that would still be the portion of money that we can be looking at as we're moving forward in time. So when Chris is talking about the projection of will we make it through next year, and families have options through next year, if at some point we start seeing that our pot is not, we're not going to have the money, that quality amount would be the part that would be, I don't want to say it's elastic, right? But again, I think that's the part that everybody would realize that's what we'd have to be looking at, unless there was another funding source added to it. But I still think it gives us room right now. And I think that's what the big ask was from providers, and is the drastic cut in trying to give people room right now, a little bit slower than what originally happened. So that, I think that's still the positive piece in this. So I don't want you to hear Chris or hear me and think that we're saying no to the rates. I actually think the rates that were suggested by the task force are doable. It's just, it makes us a little bit tighter. And it's something that I think we continue to come back and report every month where we are.
And I apologize if that came across as gloom and doom. We have to just be mindful. I wanted you all to make an informed decision with this, and know what recommendation that you want to, given all the information available to you.
Well, I just want to say out loud, thank you to the task force for doing the excellent work and thinking through that. I was really pleased in reading the recommendations and trying to think about, as Debbie, as you said, everybody involved and all the different stakeholders. So I just want to start my comments with that. What would be helpful, I think, for me to think about, I know you ran projections, but I don't know if we saw the projections. And so we certainly can make recommendations around parts of this. And I'm hearing that Stacey about sort of saying this we know, and we feel comfortable with that. We're not so sure about these other pieces. but understanding what those projections might look like and running different scenarios to help inform the commission so that we can also think through the different parts of the recommendations and the proposals would be useful. I know you had like 2 days, so I get that you know that there's a realistic thing with time and data and being able to do that work, but I do think the commission could benefit from looking at those projections over time.
Chris, put back up your slide deck that showed the difference between the two amounts, where it was really the 2 million difference, the 4 million, where it showed the difference between the age groups as a projection on the rate change. I think that is helpful.
Right here. Is that what you're talking about?
You have to share your screen again.
Oh, I thought I did. Oh, I said I was going to, but I didn't. Is this what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Okay, let me make sure I get the current slide.
So the state's plan with the state's rates set was going to get us to around 69 million. The work group would take us to that 76 million. It's about a 6 million difference. School age is the group that, which again, I think that even kind of goes with some of the rationale that was set forth by the state again about, and again, this is a place that folks looking forward in the legislature, if there was money to set aside for school age programs or things like that, summer programs specifically that folks could apply for, private and public, for summer, that might be something that state funds could come back and support another time. You can see some of the differences up here. And again, some of these differences could be made up with the copays. All right. The copays are much harder to run projections on. You know, if the copay recommendation, and I don't know that we've covered that yet, Ashlyn, and I know they've got received information about the copays, but the recommendation from the task force was to alleviate copays on families 40% SMI, 60% under 60% SMI, and it was really just about that higher group that would have the copays. Does anybody want to add anything to that? I know those of you that were there.
Representative Garner has her hand up. I don't know if it goes along with this or not.
Well, it's kind of all of it. I'm wondering if it would be helpful to see kind of the whole picture first and then go back and individually talk about each thing. I think sometimes if we just see one piece of it, it kind of skews the direction we're going. It might be helpful to see the whole plan and then focus on how we can fix it to take care of those issues. To me, maybe not, and I'm up for whatever y'all decide, but I just think it would be easier to hear kind of the whole plan quickly and then go back and get into details about some of these issues and how we might tweak them.
Ashlyn or Tyra, can you guys facilitate each of the recommendations?
Okay, hang on a second. And you're talking about, Representative Garner, you're talking about specifically what the emergency work task force said? Okay, I'm gonna read to you from the document that was sent to me. And Tyra, unless you want to do it, I think it was sent to both me and Tyra. And
Well,
Tyra,
I think what we need is how y'all, I think what we need is how y'all interpreted that and how, and what the numbers look like with everything that you've got in. So not just what they, you know what I'm saying? Just to see the overall picture and then go back to each individual area and see how we can tweak it. It just seems to me like we would understand this, the way we got to these numbers, if we know what the other numbers are first, and then go back and try to tweak them. You know what I'm saying?
I believe so. And I believe, and Chris, you help me out here, but I believe that is what's on the slide deck is where we
This
are
is
now.
everything.
It's just the rates. It's not the co-payments.
Right. And that's what I'm saying, to have the co-payments and you're saying we didn't make any difference in the PD.
I'm sorry, I'm not completely
What?
understanding. Here are the three things that we talked about during the work group session. We talked about rates, we talked about co-pays, and we talked about eligibility. And so when we, the OEC team, were looking at all of that information, Representative Garner, it was really the rates that we thought would be doable. And of course, I'm talking hypothetically because we don't know yet. But that was the portion that we thought that we could do quickly.
So the commission's
Okay.
not gonna see the information on the copays, what we did with the copays or with the eligibility.
We did not put together slide decks for the copay. We were so focused on the rates. What we could do, I'm sure we could get up, one of us, Brandy or Chris or I could dig around here in just a few seconds and try to find, if you wanted to see what the current copays are. That was part of the information that we had out on the tables. Is that what you're talking about,
Well,
Representative?
and I've seen it. I was in the work group, but I just think that yeah, I just don't think this is the whole picture of what the work group did. And maybe if the other, you're saying the other things are not doable.
No, that's
ma'am,
not what we're
I'm
saying
not
at all.
saying that.
So on the co-pays, and I don't know if they have a slide for this, we have not been able to run projections on the changes to the copay. What I can tell you on the front end, the copay implementation that was put in by the state to begin with, we were estimating at a 20% reduction to when we were trying to get, like we were like, the rate reduction would cover us 30%, copays would cover 20% when we were trying to get halfway through. So running copay projections is within our system is much more difficult because you're taking from several different scenarios, and our folks are still working through that, and we don't have that yet. We can tell you with the recommendation, we know that we would lose that 20% impact, right? And so the overall number where this cost right here would be 6 million over what we need, I still think we can make that up with the copays. I think that's what I was trying to say earlier. If we continue the copays.
Well, I can just tell you that the providers in the work group, everybody is most concerned about the parents and the parents dropping out and not being able to pay.
Yeah. So I think the task force today, the task force recommendation to the commission was to eliminate copays below 60% SMI.
Right.
Is that what, am I saying that correctly, Ashley?
That and changing the eligibility, the work hours and those kinds.
Changing the work hours to 32 hours from the current 20.
And making sure that students were
full-time students were eligible. There was also so you hit the eligibility for students. You also hit the eligibility for the work hours. There was the copay pieces and then the rates. I think those were the main pieces that day.
right.
I can show you, I could do one or two things, Representative Garner, whichever one is most helpful. I have pulled up the actual photograph that I can share out. Would that be helpful? And or I've got the document that Ms. Collier put together that has recommendations on it. I'm glad to share either one of those. Would that be helpful?
And I've got both of them, but I just thought the commission might need to see those things before.
Okay.
Ashley, put up the one that was typed up that Ms. Collier, because it's all in one document. I thought that was very helpful when she sent that.
Okay. Let's see.
So you'll have to share your screen. Chris will have to stop sharing his.
Right. There we go. I've got permission now. Let's bring her, I think this is it. All right. This is the email I received, but this is also the document here. So I'm just going to scroll down to the copays. I think that's what we're talking about here. And so you can see there what their recommendations were that they put together for a cap for the copay, to standardize the copays across all children within a household, and that the copays should be calculated based on the base reimbursement rate only. And then for eligibility, that's where the conversation about the SMI families below 60%, it sits at 40 right now, of this SMI would receive full benefits. And then 60 to 85% would have a flat percentage copay of the 30% of the base rate. And then families above 85% would not qualify for SRA. I can scroll on down then, and then that's when they also started talking about work hour requirements. Currently it was 30. They have bumped it up to 32, or that was their recommendation, to bump it up to 32. They also talked about the childcare workers,
But
where,
wasn't it 20?
ma'am,
Wasn't it 20 before?
it had been 20, it had been 30 in our past. Our state plan said our plan moving forward is to put it at 30. And then the work task force recommended the 32.
But when it was 20.
It had been. Let's see, the childcare workers, they wanted them prioritized was the recommendation. Removed from the wait list. And they wanted 20 hours of their week on on-site childcare employment. And then you can see there where they said student exemptions, full-time students working part-time remain eligible. Then they had some overall, just programmatic recommendations.
Hey, Ashlyn, I'm sorry, I was wondering about, back to the childcare workers just a minute. Was a recommendation, did I interpret that correctly, that they have to meet the income requirements now? Whereas,
Mhm.
before that was not part of it, right?
I believe so, Brandy. You help me out on that one.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, I would like to discuss that one more when we have time.
Yes, ma'am. And again, these were the recommendations, and I have to say it was a good day. I felt like it was a good day. There were many people with different points of view in the beginning, and it was really neat to see them come together and make some compromises. And so this was their overall recommendation, but Dr. Hanahan, within those folks, there were some, I think, that might have had the same concerns as you had about it. Is this helpful to the commissioners? And Tyra, I believe you can send it out, or I can send it out to everyone so that you have a copy. I apologize. I
I
thought
think we all
everybody
have
did
it.
one.
Yeah,
Okay.
they all
We
have
all
it.
have it, yeah.
Okay.
So Ashlyn, can you school me just a little bit? I noticed that there are part-time SRA rates. What is considered a part-time SRA rate?
Brandy, I've been
Under
wanting to get
seven,
out this information.
under 7 hours of care per day.
Okay, so will that still be something that's there once the 32-hour work week is enforced, if that becomes a thing?
Yes, it currently would, because that part-time rate or that full-time rate depends on how many hours of care you need for the child, not how many hours that the family is working.
Okay.
And Brandy, I just have to say thank you. You always stay so calm. I always appreciate your calm demeanor in these.
She is so good. Our team is so good. I appreciate you saying that, Dr. Hanahan.
Yeah.
I am still learning, and that's sometimes why you all will hear me say, Brandy, can you answer that? Chris,
Oh,
can
it's
you answer that?
great.
Because the last thing that I want to do is give y'all misinformation. And my brain is trying to go as fast as it can, but this team has been really good just to stay steady, to try
Yeah.
to get the information to everyone as quickly as possible, and making sure that it's accurate and
Yeah.
right. But like Chris has said and Stacy has said, it's such a moving target in a lot of areas and hard to predict because of either, the requirement 45 days to bill, which we want people to have that. It just makes it difficult then to see how much do you have outstanding still. And that's usually me where I come in. Debbie, I'm the same as you. I'm not a big numbers girl, but I can sure look at a bottom line. And so that's the part that I'm steady asking my team, like, okay, but where are we today? And how much do we have outstanding? And what does that look like? So we're working
I-
really hard.
I want to interject something in here too to think about. Again, I think all the recommendations on the task force in each of those categories was well thought out. And again, I think most of the recommendations I think have a standing at some point. My biggest caution is the federal government is still shut down. To implement every single recommendation of the task force this month, every one of those has a cost to it, right? Because it was opening up or reducing the copays, so that will increase the monthly cost that we're trying to shrink. And right now, even with the projections on just the rates, we're bumping right at the absolute amount for an entire year. So if we spend a little bit more, a little bit, I mean, we're out of money. My biggest concern for this month is right now, projection wise, we have enough to make it through the month on the rate, even making the rate changes. If the federal government does not open back up, we're out of money. And so any change we make that increases our spend out each month decreases the amount of time we can make it based on when the federal government opens back up, which again, I know we're not making every decision based on that, but when the money runs out, the money will run out. So that's just another thing about enacting everything at one time or making a recommendation to do everything at one time. But if this commission feels strongly about the copay recommendations, and that's what you would like to see moving forward, I think as the commission, you guys can make that recommendation. We're still running internal like calculations on pieces. And I wish we had an exact number for you, but I don't on the copay part. On the eligibility pieces, like the 32 hours or the 30 hours, those changes get impacted when people reauthorize at their year point. It's not going to kick everybody out and push everybody to 32 hours at one time. It's when they come back in and reapply. So it's not something that we make that change. It applies to everybody this month. It only applies to those who are reapplying. So there are pieces like that I know in our conversations, being able to roll a lot of these pieces back in as we see where the budget falls each month and what bills we're paying. Again, like I said, we're still paying September bills at the end of October. So we know that's going to continue based on the number of authorizations we have out there.
So Stacy, I'm wondering, obviously we don't want all of those people that have not been billing to flood the system right now, right? Because that just make us run out of money faster. But going forward, once the government opens back up, can we, say that you have to bill within a certain amount of time? Because my provider group may shoot me down for this, but you can't say that you don't have enough money to make a living if you're not billing the people for what you're owed. And that just
right now we have that 45-day window, I believe, Brandy. Brandy's the expert on that.
Yes, the new what's gone into the procedure manual or the participant agreement effective November 1 will be 30 days to bill.
30 days.
It starts to deobligate.
Yeah. Thank you.
That'll help a little bit then. But that's also something we need to make sure we really get that information out there, or we might catch some people unaware.
Stacy or Chris, Ashlyn, we had a worst case scenario in there if the government didn't reopen. How much money would it take from the governor if we asked that from our surplus or rainy day or whatever fund? How much would it take to get us to 8 weeks until we can get to fiscal session? I know we looked at that number.
Our current rate of spend right now, this last month, was 12 million. What we're showing we have for this month is 11 million. If we enact these rate changes at the projections per monthly, we can get to a per monthly spend. But if you're looking to try to get to the fiscal session, you're looking between 10 to 12 million a month. we're trying to get that down to 7 million, but right now our rate of spend is still about 12 million a month based on the authorizations that are out there. And we can make that, again, like once we do the rate changes, we will keep calculating till we get to the point of a daily rate. But I believe right now they're spending, I was getting charts every day of a daily rate amount, which was, or about $500,000 a day.
Yep, 500,000 a day.
Yeah, I would love to, obviously, love to see us work on this plan. But the thing
We
is
will.
I think that if Dawn had those numbers, she could plug them into what we've got already and try to figure out a way to, I think the working group could really make a difference in the way we implement if they had that information that we didn't have in the working group meeting itself. So how can we make that happen? How can we make sure that everybody was in that working group, sees what we're doing now, knows the numbers that we didn't know last time about the billing and all of that, and plug in, I mean, she can do it in real time. How can we do that? How can we make sure that we have the recommendations as needed from them with the change numbers that we have?
I mean, we're happy to share those numbers every time we do a billing cycle on it. Like as those are coming in and we're processing the payments on that Tuesday, we're happy to be able to share those. Those are not a secret. So we're happy to be able to share those.
I was hoping we could do it before November 1st. You know,
I mean, we can share exactly what we have right now, what Chris calculated yesterday from the authorizations that were already out there. I mean, we can send those pieces over, the federal pre-K slots, we can send those pieces over. But our monthly rate of spend at this point is about 12 million. And it even from this last month, because we continued to pay that quality part, even though we implemented co-pays, it was still, we're at 12 million right now, and we're not at the end of October. And we've done a hiring freeze here at the department. Our travel, as far as people going to sites, all of that has been, we're even looking at other indirect or federal reserves that we can move folks to. And unfortunately, we're having to look at our pay periods and when we would have to let people go. I mean, there are pieces like that. Our commitment is for providers and families to be paid the longest way possible. And every scenario we've made has been for that to be able to remain open as long as possible. Tyra, do you want to maybe walk the group through on making a recommendation on each of those categories as far as like the rates? Would the commission, like to go ahead and say, yes, we'd like to maybe see these rates go ahead and get implemented for November 1st, or have discussion about that, and then maybe move to the second recommendation and say, as a commission, we want to make that recommendation for right now or not. We then as a department will take the recommendations of this commission. We'll share those with our secretary. We'll share those with the governor's office. So I don't know if you guys kind of want to walk through some of those pieces, and on some of them, you may still be, we're unsure, but we like what the task force did and we want to keep investigating that. But maybe you guys could walk them through as each recommendation, and that maybe get you to a point of some decisions today.
Sure. So do we want to open the floor to discussion on the rates?
I would ask if there's any pushback on the proposed rates, if anybody has any pushback.
Yeah, I have no pushback on the rates.
So do we have any other questions? Any other questions for OEC about the rate changes before we? No. Okay, I'm sorry, I'm just gonna ask a question. Do we want to do this officially? Like, do we want to make a motion to recommend or?
If we don't do that now, we would have to convene for
Come back
another
and do it
meeting. Is
again?
that correct? So I would vote that we motion to make a decision.
Okay, can I get a motion to make a decision on the rate change?
I motion to make a decision on the rate change.
I second that.
Okay, all in favor of making a recommendation?
Aye.
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 Okay, so we're gonna take a vote, and I mean, it looks like we are all at consensus. All in favor of approving or recommending that we carry through with the task force recommended rate changes?
Aye.
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 Okay, so the commission does recommend that that we follow the proposed rate changes implemented by the task force. And then next we need to talk about copays. So do we want to vote on it's hard because there's so many aspects, right? So what do we want to do? Do we want to make a recommendation on that right now, or do we want to so let's open the floor for discussion. What are our concerns about the copays?
If I heard
None.
the conversation correctly, there's still information that we don't know the impact of copays. And so I think for me to vote that we should recommend that as an impact, I just don't know. I don't have that information to be able to say that this would be a bad idea, a good idea. It's going to change our timelines. It's going to impact families in a different way. I don't think I have enough information to make that. So my recommendation would be that we ask the office to do that projection as best possible with the information and feed that back to us so that we can make a determination about the impact and of the overall timeline to get as much of this closer to that deadline of September.
Is it possible to make the recommendation of the rate changes with the government shutdown and the uncertainty of what's going to happen to then, like Dr. Williams said, to see the projections and make the recommendation on the copays in the future?
Well, they're all tied together.
I would certainly feel more comfortable with that. I think the working group made it very clear that we didn't actually, I don't think there was a parent in the room, but they all made it clear that those changes were extremely important to their families. And I just feel uncomfortable not waiting to talk about that. So I like that idea. Make the recommendation and then let's try to figure out how to tweak it or get the information that we need to make it happen.
Okay, so just so I'm clear, Commissioner Garner, you're proposing we make the recommendation to make the changes that the task force recommended for now and then review monthly?
Well,
Or-
at least, and knowing that the government may not open up in time to make those changes, but certainly I think I think we need to make sure that everyone knows that the parents and the children, along with the providers, are all important.
Mhm.
And some of those changes, especially the eligibility changes, I think are extremely important. And that certainly the providers made it sound like it was extremely important. That was always, they were always at the forefront.
So could we propose that the commission make the recommendation to adopt the eligibility and the copay recommendations of the task force, but that the office also then consider the fiscal implications of those decisions and how that, and then and get that back to the commission for review? Would that be a reasonable compromise as a way forward here?
Any any opposition to that recommendation?
So run that recommendation by me one more time.
So essentially, we'd be saying we are recommending that these that the task force recommendations be put forth as what we would like to see, but we'd also ask for a fiscal analysis of the impact of those recommendations.
So that would mean that we would not go through with forward with the rate changes? Or would that be part of the discussion? Is that separate?
I think we voted on that already, so this would be separate, the other two
So it's
pieces.
just the eligibility and the copays.
That's how I'm understanding this, but yeah.
That's also
Thoughts?
how I understand it.
And I've got a question real quickly. Would it, and it may be procedurally better to do it after this motion, but can we also make the recommendation that the task force get this information, all the information that we're getting, so that they could actually stay on and tweak? It may be that the providers could do something a little bit different to make sure that the parents get what they need, or vice versa, whatever it is. I just would feel a whole lot more comfortable if this working group had some input into the final tweaking. They may be able to fix it so that we don't have those issues. I don't know that, but they were amazing. They were absolutely amazing. And so I don't feel comfortable without at least allowing them to take a look and see if there's ways that they can make it better. They're on the, their boots on the ground. They know what's going on and how they could fix it.
And I can amend my conversation, officially a motion, but the idea that the recommendation come back to the commission would then give that information to the task force, so the task force could make determinations if there's any needed changes to those recommendations based on the fiscal analysis.
Perfect.
Does that hold for everybody?
Yep.
Okay, and just to be clear, we're just talking about the parent copays,
And
correct?
eligibility.
And eligibility, we haven't discussed, we really haven't had the discussion about eligibility yet. Because I'm comfortable making that motion for the parent copays part and then move on to eligibility, if we could do that.
Yep.
I like that.
Okay. Would someone like to formally motion?
Okay, I make the motion that we move forward with the parent copays as suggested by the working group. With the whole Dr. Jason Williams, you'll have to chime in with that the task force will still have an opportunity to tweak it as needed.
Can I just, to clarify for myself, we have motioned and approved that our number one priority is the rates, correct? So now we're saying we also support the copays, but don't want that to be implemented right away?
I don't think that, I think they're all priorities. I think all three are priorities. We want all
Yeah.
three. It sounds like we've got the numbers to make that decision for the rates. We don't have all the numbers to make that decision necessarily for the for the rate change for the parent copays. So we don't really
We're saying we want to make the decision, but we can't yet until we have more information.
right, but we want to make sure that the governor and everyone else knows that that is just as much a priority as everything else. We just don't have the numbers to make it happen, I think is what the working group would say. And I want to give them an opportunity to figure out if maybe the providers can do something a little bit different to make the rates happen for the families. Maybe they can't, but I want to make sure that they have that opportunity to take a look at it anyway. So I don't think they would say that any of these things were more important than the others. All of them, we've got to have all of them. We've got to have the parents that can pay to go to the child cares, and we have to make sure that we have the providers to take them. So it's all important. So we need to make sure that they're all priorities. We just need to figure out how we can take the money at hand and make that happen to the best extent possible. Correct me if I'm wrong, Tyra, Jane, yeah, y'all were in the meetings.
Yeah, that's my understanding. But so are we saying, what we're basically saying is that we support their recommendation, but
Right.
that we need further follow-up to see if it's going to be feasible.
Right.
That's my understanding of what we're fixing to do from both OEC and input from the task force. Can we make it happen? That is my interpretation. Are we all on that same page?
I think that's right. I mean, what I'm trying to get to is making so that we give OAC our recommendation officially, so that that is part of that process, and that then we can use it so they can do their work of giving us the information to take back to the task force to make determinations about if there needs to be modifications to any of the recommendations based on the fiscal impact. So we just don't have that information, but I think we need to do that procedurally to them so that the commission's making the recommendation. So that's where my language is coming in.
Okay, so I think I made a motion. So,
And I don't think we need to amend the motion to the best of my recollection.
very
So,
good, thank you.
do I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Hey, Tyra, before we move on to the next one,
Yes.
I'd just like to take a moment to pause and talk about how resilient our educators are. And I do not want this to become a practice. We should not have to fundraise to take care of our children, but one of our providers did some type of crowd fundraising, and got copays covered for the rest of the year for her families. Again, we should not have to do that, but that is what's taking place in our community to make sure that we're taking care of our parents. And I just want to celebrate that, because I think that's an amazing thing that this provider did.
The providers in the working group were amazing. They were also talking about, helping families offset cost with work in the facility. All kinds of they were trying to think of all kinds of things to make sure that the parents were taken care of, the families were taken care of. So I know that was a huge priority for them. So I just don't feel comfortable changing things without at least letting them know. Somebody asked me if we had a parent in the room, and nobody introduced themselves as a parent, but the entire room was parent advocates. So it was pretty amazing to watch.
I agree. And I can't say that I was surprised, but haven't talked to them throughout the week, but it was still amazing to see just their commitment and the work that they have put in beforehand to try to come up with a solution. And it's very impressive. Okay, I'm going to move on and open the floor for discussion on the eligibility recommendations. Are there any questions?
Yeah, that was my one sticking point about this, just because when they opened up the child care worker vouchers, one of the things that was so attractive is that a mother could receive those even if her husband's income exceeded the guidelines, exceeded the income level. And I just thought that would be such a great way to increase the workforce, if mothers knew they had that option. So that was one that I don't even know what type of population we're looking at, how many numbers are out there, but I know that I was that mom when I worked in childcare in the 90s, and it would have been really, really helpful. So I don't know. That's just it's just I'm coming from a personal level, I guess. So I'm probably a little biased, but I'm just seeing this horrible situation with childcare staffing that we're having, and I would love to get more mamas in there if we can. And I had my master's degree when I was doing that and making nothing. So I just think we could get some highly qualified childcare providers if we did not limit them to that income limit.
I just wonder, Shelley, could
Yeah.
we limit it just a little? Like, because if you have a family that, is doing very, very well, right? Very,
I
very
understand what
well,
you're saying.
you
Yeah.
know, and then their childcare is paid for, that, you know what I mean? That takes up spaces for children. And I'm not pushing back on you about the eligibility at all, because I've seen it happen, but I've also seen it abused. So I think there needs to be
Well,
some
so
type
you
of,
so that's the thing. I don't know about the population
right.
level we're seeing.
Yeah.
How many abuses are we seeing?
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't even know how to straighten that out, right?
Yeah, and I feel like we haven't even had time to see what, because it just came into play last year
Yeah. Yeah.
when the governor and when she announced it, wasn't that was that a year ago?
Shelley, I think in the
Yeah.
working group, and I agree with you, I think
Yeah.
we've got to grow our own. We've got to do everything we can do to get childcare educators. I think that the working group was trying to get down to bare bones. Bare
Yes.
bones.
Yes.
This is the thing that we need to do first. But the other thing that they requested, and I would request as a commission, is that we keep this group going, that we keep the working group open, even, add more parents, add some of the universities, some other folks that weren't in this group, maybe to work on long-term plans and long-term changes, because this is a market fail. We all know that this
Absolutely.
system does not work. We've
Right.
got to do something to make it work. Whether that's, the government can't do it all. Obviously, it's going to have to be some partnerships, but that's a long-term issue. We tried to get to the bare bones so that what was needed to happen by November 1st could happen to keep the most centers, the most homes operational for the most amount of bang for your buck. So I do think those things are extremely important. That may be what we ended up calling the parking lot issue. It may be some things that we have to put in the parking lot until we can get this crisis over with. But
Yes.
the whole point, I think, of the working group and their plan and their hope is that we can, that we can make sure that this group continues, or add to a group, or have a working group looking at long-term changes for early childhood.
And I think I would be okay with it being a parking lot issue, just saying that if this is something that can be revisited when the crisis is not so critical. I just didn't want it to be something that we said absolutely this is our recommendation to keep it, but I would be okay. I like it as a parking lot issue, Denise. That's
Yeah, and I think the way they changed the work requirement, that it has to be on site and not available to contract or remote employees, will take care of some of that.
Oh, and so I didn't even know that was a possibility.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like that, that was just ridiculous to me when I saw that. I didn't know that they could do that.
Yeah. It's just like licensing. Things get changed because people abuse, right? And
Yeah.
we don't realize it, and then it hits us. So.
And for my clarification, Ashlyn, did I hear you say that any changes to eligibility, or maybe it was Stacy that said, but any changes to eligibility won't actually come into play until until families re-enroll. Is that
Got it. Mhm.
that's
You
correct?
got it.
Okay.
Yeah, and
So
I go ahead, I'm sorry.
so there would be no immediate impact on eligibility.
Right.
Even okay. I just want to be sure I understood that correctly.
Yeah, and I was trying to stay real quiet to let you all talk amongst yourselves, but I just want to ring in and say, from my vantage point, all of this is still a continuate. We will talk and talk and talk more and more and more. So I hear where you're coming from, Dr. Hanahan, and we can definitely continue to talk about it. Like what those eligibility requirements are for childcare workers, for anyone. We can look at the copays. We just don't have enough information on those copays yet to give y'all an accurate look at what it is. That's not to say we're not going to talk about it. We will. All the things that the task force brought up, we'll still talk about those things. And we need to, for all the reasons you all just brought up. So please hear me when I say I'm very interested in the task force continuing. I do think that we need to get potentially some other representation on there, included in there. I'm not saying remove anyone, but we did invite a family member. I wanted to make sure that I said that specifically for you, Dr. Williams, because you had brought it up. We did invite one. She just wasn't able to attend. And so I am very interested in what comes of it. When we can get this settled down a little bit, we always have to remember the spend. So I just want to make sure that you all hear from me say, we have a spend issue right now that we're trying to get through. Um, we don't know what that date is going to be, but we're looking at about a month, we think. We still, if we're making these changes at the rate that we're spending, we just need to remember that it will impact what that looks like in September of 2026. What I want to make sure that we do too, as we're talking along and partnering together, is that this is so painful. Y'all have said it many times. It is so painful right now. What I don't personally want for families and children is to have this pain all the time. Like where we get it fixed for a moment and then we get a few months down the road and then we're having to do it again, because of our spend. So it's a twofold spend issue in my own mind. It is currently, how can we get as far as we possibly can with this federal shutdown without having any more funds coming in? So how far can we get right now and provide services to families and to children for as long as possible? That's number one. And then number two is, if and when we get this money, we know how much money we're getting, then how far again can we get? And we have to be looking at it broad, like between now and September 2026, but also narrow now and end of November. So those are the things that I'm keeping on my mind all the time when I'm talking to our guys or anyone about, okay, bottom line it for me. If we make these changes, we're shortening our time here. Is that correct? And the answer's been yes, because the money hasn't changed. So I'm right there with y'all with all of these recommendations. I'm tracking you. They make sense to me. I understand it, want to do it. And at the same time, trying to be a very good steward of what we have left right now. So I'm right here for you anytime. I also want to say, I know that we're way over what I put on your calendars. Glad to stay with you longer, but I just wanted
My
to.
calendar has till 11:30.
It does. I had 9 to
So does
9:30.
mine. I was thinking it was 2.5
Okay.
hours.
I think that happened when we set this up as a webinar. So I apologize for that change as well. So Tyra, I think
We
that
all
you all,
accepted it, so
and that's good. That's very good. And that's the other thing, y'all. I want to be as transparent. I don't want you to ever think that I'm holding back any information from you. So I apologize if I was a little confused there in the beginning with Representative Garner. Like, oh, I thought you all had that. That was on me if you didn't. So anything you all want, I will give y'all because I do think that it helps you to make decisions. It helps you to advise us. It helps us to look at things from a different opinion, a different point of view. So I think that part's good too. Tyra, I promise I'll be quiet right now because I think you all are still talking about eligibility.
Yeah, do we have any more questions or discussion points about eligibility? Anything else that needs clarifying for anyone? Okay. Would anyone like to make a motion about this recommendation from the task force? So
I can
maybe we need
motion.
to
Yeah,
continue.
I
to
can make a motion that childcare workers should be prioritized for eligibility and removed from the wait list, provided they meet the same income criteria and work requirements with at least 20 hours per week in on-site childcare employment. But that we would look at this again for the work requirement when this spending crisis settles down to include more eligibility for childcare workers.
The only thing, so and maybe this would be an easier way to do this, just to separate out the eligibility and the recommendation and the existence of the task force as an ongoing entity for the commission to review all of the recommendations and make that a separate motion, so that we are keeping this as a working group, including any additional members that might need to be added, rather than it being part of the recommendation around eligibility. I don't know.
Instead of every single motion, adding them to every single motion. Okay.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that. Also with the opening of the task force too, instead of just a set group. Because I think several people that day had put their names down. And so, yeah.
Hey, and I just want to bring one thing up that did not get talked about, and this commission also represents, is what's going on in the world right now of, our Head Start program. We just had a huge Head Start program in Central Arkansas close. They're looking at shortages in those fundings alone. I saw a letter this last week, Head Start asking for TANF funds. And so some of the same conversations that this work group is having in terms of our school readiness assistance programs, you're seeing parallel in Head Start. And so as that work group is working forward, I think there's an avenue to bring those folks in, because it's all the same pot of money. And, when people are start going over to the governor's office to start asking for assistance or TANF, if we're asking for TANF and they're asking for TANF, somebody's got to be able to come in and say, what does that look like? And what does that look? So I would throw that in there at some point.
I agree with that 100%.
I do too.
I agree with this. This whole childcare, it's such a huge thing, and there's so many different organizations or programs out there. We need to figure out how we pull all this together so that we're all walking down the same path.
Okay, so while we're discussing this other motion, we have a motion on the floor.
Could you repeat the motion? Or whoever made it, repeat it.
Yeah, I did. And Senator
Yes.
English, I just basically read it from the task force paperwork.
I liked it. I forgot it.
Yeah. So childcare workers should be prioritized for eligibility and removed from the wait list, provided they meet the same income criteria and work requirements with at least 20 hours per week in on-site childcare employment. This is not available to contract or remote employees of a facility. Also, we would like for this to be revisited to look at the income requirements for childcare workers after the crisis ends.
I second that motion.
Have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. And can I get a motion regarding the ongoing involvement of the task force?
I so move.
A second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried.
So do we want to go back and kind of go over where we are now, what these recommendations are that we have made? That we're going to submit to the agency?
Sure, we can. And
Just so we're all clear about what we've said.
so we recommended, and please jump in if I miss something, but we recommended to support the task force recommendation on the rate change effective right away. On copays, we voted to support their recommendation, but gather more information and involve get more information about how the copays affect the overall pot of money, and then bring the task force in to take that information and run it in their models and monitor those costs before we make a final decision about what we're going to do with copays. And eligibility, we voted to support the recommendation on the work requirement for childcare workers, and then review the other eligibility criteria that wouldn't take effect, eligibility changes that would not take effect until re-enrollment, and review those in an ongoing way and make some recommended changes down the line. Is that correct? Did I get it?
That is correct.
Sounds good.
I'm looking now, we didn't look at student exemptions. Do we have to actually verbalize that, or?
Yes, Stacy, do you need us to verbalize the?
I mean, if you want that included in, I mean, if the consensus of the task force right now is that you're wanting student exemptions, then I can note that down and we'll make sure and have that when we're communicating. But we're on the 32 hours, are y'all making that recommendation? Or is that something you're looking at later down the road?
I think that was right now, the
Yeah.
student. Yeah.
So childcare workers.
The only thing that was the parking lot was the families who don't meet those income.
Okay. So everything else that was under eligibility.
Right.
Was recommended. Okay.
And I have a question, Stacy, just as far as action items, hi, I'm sorry about that. We will get those numbers for copays, get them back to the working group, and then they get them back to you. So for them to tweak any numbers and then get them back to you. So what I'm saying is that some of the things that we've recommended, we're recommending, but they may tweak the provider rates in order to change that copay. So what is the procedure for that?
We'll work internally today to get information to the folks on that task force as quickly as possible. What we're going to do at the end of this is we're going to take everything that this Early Childhood Commission is recommending. We'll put together our information to be able to send to our secretary, so our secretary can talk to the governor's office. We'll run projections in-house. If the task force comes back tomorrow and says, hey, look at what if you change this number here or this number here, we'll run those projections too. Our goal would be able to come out definitively, hopefully tomorrow afternoon, to say, this is what we're going to do for the November 1st, moving forward next week. We're going to adjust this part. We're going to work on this part. If we see we can roll something in a week later, we will. But we're going to take what you guys say as the task force and be able to we're going to make sure people know that that's y'all's recommendation. I would probably encourage Tyra, and we can assist in pinning something from the commission that Tyra would sign so that there's something more official. We'll definitely carry your message, and even the recommendations that Dawn had typed up. I mean, we can attach that document to it if you guys are basically endorsing that. Just so you're not just relying on us to verbally communicate for you.
That would be fantastic. Thank you.
We'd love for you to use that document. That would be wonderful. Pretty smart group they were. Pretty smart group. Also, don't forget the 72-month lifetime limit for the benefit for SRA. That's a really important one also. I don't think we need a motion. It's there on the paper.
Yeah, it's on the paper. But I do think in a future topic when we're talking about that group is the wait list. There's huge concerns about especially new families with infants who are on that wait list. And the more we stretch and open up eligibility or make people priorities, it makes that wait list longer. And right now there is a wait list.
Yep. And it's also hard. Like we've come from a really season where everything was wonderful, right? But I can remember a time where we always had a wait list, always. So this is not new ground for us, and it's not right for people, but it is what it is. We just have to figure out the best path forward. And I have never been in a commission meeting where they actually listen to some funding issues and considerations from providers. So we appreciate that so much that you guys are actually listening and making some changes based on recommendations from providers. It really means a lot.
Appreciate that.
Tyra or maybe Ashlyn, was all of the working group or were all the working group members alerted to the debrief? So are most of them on this call? Do you know?
No. I don't think so.
Yes, they were alerted. Well,
I thought so. But the way the webinar is set up, Representative Garner, I can't see who all is, so I'm not sure how many folks we have on here with us. But definitely
I'm
we
looking through. I'm
There's
sorry, Ashley.
47. Sorry.
Go ahead.
I just see if you go to participants next to us panelists, you can click attendees, and there's 47 people here with us.
And I'm seeing familiar names that were on the committee, on the working group that are there.
Great. So anybody, Tyra, that gave you their emails should be on the list to get this meeting. Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yes, I got a list from Ashlyn, so she definitely has the master list.
Tyra, for staffing purposes, our office will work directly with you to help you to put together a letter if you'd like to do that.
Yes.
And then we could share that with all the commission members as staffing this group for you, if you would
Okay.
like that. Is there anything else on the items or the list or the task force recommendations that you guys want to do today, or?
help me understand. Remember, I'm not a big numbers girl. If the government does not come back to work, what happens? Do we need to request that stopgap?
So I think that may be, I think that kind of goes with what Representative Gardner was asking earlier. What's our daily spend rate,
Yep.
right? If the changes to the rates that you guys are recommending occur, we will have to watch that for like the next week, 2 weeks. Like, how does that really change? Because right now we've just forecasted, right? So like, how does that actually change our spend? We'll have to start looking to when does those September payments finish out and the October ones kind of start coming in. But I do think we could probably put together a more solid number that Representative Gardner was requesting for what it would take to get us to a certain point. And that may be something you guys want to come back and revisit again. I mean, it sounds like not only is the task force going to be working and meeting regularly, but the commission probably needs to have a more regular cadence than quarterly at this point. And so again, Tyra, we will help you guys organize anytime to set up, what you guys are wanting. But Debbie, the answer is when the money's out, the money's out, right? And so stretching that for this month, we feel like we have the month covered. Even that's making the rate changes. We're going to really have to forecast the pieces with some of those other elements. The more we do, the shorter the time frame gets, right? So right now we have a finite amount of money, but again, we are forecasting on if everything gets spent that we have authorized. And of course, as you know, not every authorization gets used, but we're budgeting on the fat side right now. So.
Perfect. And also want to clarify that because there's a lot of people watching, that this doesn't, when we leave this meeting, this doesn't necessarily mean this is absolutely what's going to happen, right?
Correct.
This is
We're
just
going to take the recommendations. We're going to run. We're going to forecast. Our hope tomorrow is to be able to come back and say, this is what we heard from the commission. This is what we've heard from providers. This is what we know other folks are asking, and then implement and be able to, when we know final decision points, we will make sure the commission members know. We will put out probably a webinar to providers, or we will email providers information as soon as we know.
Perfect. We appreciate
decisions are being made like this week.
Thank you.
Stacy, would you make sure that the commission is on, or I want to be on the webinars for the providers and for anybody else that you put on? I'd love to be a part of that.
Yes, Chris and Ashlyn will make sure
Just
you
so we
guys
know.
are invited to any type of meetings or webinars or emails that go out.
Great. And
That's a good suggestion.
I just want to say real quickly that for those of us who were in the working group, it was amazing to watch. It was amazing to watch the providers. It was amazing to watch the staff and the way they interacted. And it's just one more proof to me that the way to make the best decisions is to get everybody in the room. And it worked. We may not get everything we want. We may not get anything we want, but at least everyone was heard. Their opinions were given. They were, the Chris and Ashlyn, both of you guys, Brandy, Therese, everybody was interested in trying to make sure that we were all getting our opinions heard. And I just can't thank y'all enough, because it doesn't happen in government enough. And I appreciate the way, I wish it had happened earlier, but that's not the way government has worked in the past. So I'm hoping that this is an example of what we can do across the board and make sure that this is still happening, because it does make a huge difference. We've got to have the knowledge base from those folks who are grassroots and boots on the ground. And so thank you to the staff for helping to make this happen, and to the commission who was willing to step out of their comfort zone a little bit for this working group. So I appreciate everybody on this call. So thank you.
Yeah, I totally agree, Denise. I have never been more proud of early childhood educators for advocating for themselves like they have. It's been amazing. And those include our Office of Early Childhood staff. So yes, thank you.
Okay, y'all. Well, if there's no other comments or anything that we need to talk about, we certainly need to jump off here and get busy on all those tasks. So I don't want to hold us up if we're done, but definitely I want to stay if we're not. So you all tell me, are we good?
Well, there are a couple of questions in the chat. I just didn't know if who wanted to address those.
Okay, I'm going back up to the top team. You help me too. I'm looking. Any comments about the co-pays? So we will definitely talk about that. In terms of right now, we're hoping, so Nicole, what we're hoping to do is make a decision by tomorrow and get that information out to everyone. So right now, the way we're paying is the way we're paying. But we will let you know one way or the other what's happening tomorrow, whether we're staying with what we've got or whether we're changing something. We'll let you know tomorrow. Did I miss anything else? It looks like everything else are things that we
That's it.
talked about.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that Kathy Swan had asked something about whether we were going to allow this presentation to be provided, and I'm happy to share whatever we have.
Yeah, Chris, you can go ahead and just post it online where we've been posting our other presentations. Everything that we have is people can have.
Absolutely.
Yep. Okay, y'all. Anything else? All right. Hearing nothing, that I just want to reiterate what you all have said. It has been a pleasure getting everybody together and talking about it. I hope that that is our future too, where we can do that and generate all kinds of ideas from all kinds of people in the early childhood education world. And I just want to say this because I say it every time in every meeting to anyone that'll listen to me. This is exciting. I know it's painful, but the exciting part is I've never known this many people talking about early childhood all at the same time. So if there ever was a time for us to do it, I think now it is. So it's going to be good, I think, in the long run. So right here available for you. If you all need an email, call me, call Chris. We'll be glad to answer and field any calls that you might have. Otherwise, we're going to get to work on trying to get an answer out tomorrow. Okay?
Welcome on board, Ashlyn.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you,
Just
Representative
in
Carter.
time. Thank you.
Thank
Appreciate
you,
that.
everybody.
All right, bye, y'all.
Thank you, guys.
Bye.
See you soon.